The first part of the visual is how your right rib cage or right oblique is going to work during the downswing. So I'm going to put a club kind of right in the middle of my rib cage. Now, if I were to take my setup position, that club in my rib cage points roughly 45 degrees behind me, right? It doesn't point at the ball, doesn't point at the camera, it points about 45 degrees. And I'm going to grab it about halfway down the shaft. Now, by the time I get to impact, I want to have turned my rib cage to where that club would be looking right at the golf ball. You see that there? So I put it in my rib cage, I put it about halfway down with my right hand, club's about 45 degrees, and I want to turn my body enough into impact where that club head is to the golf ball. I want to talk to you today about live view golf. Now, you guys hear me say all the time that you need feedback when you're practicing. You need to know if you're actually doing what you're trying to do, and the best way to give yourself feedback ultimately is video. And not only is video the best way to give yourself feedback, but being able to see yourself simultaneously as you're doing a movement is the best form of video feedback. It's the best way I've seen to make changes in your swing and be able to correlate the differences between your feels and your reels. Live view is super easy to use and set up. Simply set it up behind or in front of you. You connect it with your iPad or phone, pop that on the ground. You can actually do your practice, see yourself as you're doing it, the best way to expedite your process. I encourage you guys to check out Live View Golf. We'll put a link in the description down below with a coupon code. So tour-like rotation during the downswing. And we're gonna get right to the point with this. I have sort of what I would call a two-part feel. I was doing, some of you guys know we did a 7-day free trial, and we got a ton of feedback. So thank you guys for that, for all the people who joined. We filled our spots way sooner than normal, so we had to shut it down. But as I was talking through with some players, and I actually was coming up with some of these feels to increase downswing rotation and doing some impact drills. And the one that I really like best is this. So the first part of the visual is how your right rib cage or right oblique is going to work during the downswing. So I'm going to put a club kind of right in the middle of my rib cage. Now, if I were to take my setup position, that club in my rib cage points roughly 45 degrees behind me, right? It doesn't point at the ball, doesn't point at the camera, it points about 45 degrees. And I'm going to grab it about halfway down the shaft. Now, by the time I get to impact, I want to have turned my rib cage to where that club would be looking right at the golf ball. You see that there? So I put it in my rib cage, I put it about halfway down with my right hand, club's about 45 degrees, and I want to turn my body enough into impact where that club head is to the golf ball. Now, if I went down, and I actually could turn even a little bit more to the point where the club would be past the golf ball, that would be cool too. I could actually get it here and get that club past the ball. Or if I were to look at this sort of like a laser beam through that middle part of my right rib cage, I want to get this thing turned at or just past the ball. That would be a full amount of rotation. Now notice when I'm doing this, no left hand included. I want to take my left hand off to be able to give myself freedom of motion to feel what that feels like. So that's getting my rib cage forward here, right? And it's getting it fully turned on the way through. So I'm getting that rib cage fully turned, the laser pointed down at the ball. If I made a downswing with no rotation, right, which I see a lot of here, that rib cage would still be pointed way back behind the ball. So for me to get it to the ball, I need to turn, and I also want to get the club head feeling like it's pretty darn close to the ball. So I don't want it to be level way up here a couple feet from it. I want that thing to be pointed down at the ball, turned and tilted, pointed at the ball. I mean, I think that's such a good feedback drill to put in to gain the feel right to here. So my rib cage is turned and tilted. Now, as we're doing that, one of the feels that this player expressed they liked was also to add in, as I'm getting the rib cage turning towards the ball, to also feel like at the point that my rib cage and club is pointed at the ball, my belt buckle is pointed at the target. So I'm turned and I'm tilted over. So my rib cage, kind of like our core swing video, if it starts, I kept saying 3 feet, but that's not real. It's probably more like 4.5 feet. But my rib cage here, as I'm turning it towards the ball, feels like it's as close or slightly closer than where it started. So I'm not getting farther than when I started. I'm turning here. So rib cage to the ball, belt buckle to the target. Rib cage to the ball, belt buckle to the target. You get the point here one more time. Rib cage to the ball, belt buckle towards the target. And what we did was we set up a practice routine starting with little hits. I like those impact feels, right? I like you coming in, taking your setup, doing 1 or 2 of those. What does that feel like? Now let me, with a club, kind of get the same feel, get my rib cage turn, my belt buckle turn. What does that feel like? And then start to hit and recreate that same sensation. I feel like my rib cage is pointed to the ball, belt buckle towards the target, and really help me feel like I can get my body a lot more turned and tilted during the follow through. Now, why do I want to be turned and tilted during the follow through? Outside of like us putting up 100 swings in a row, of looking at really good ball strikers and them looking like this, right? You model success. Me getting my rib cage and belt buckle open helps me big time with shaft lean. So it enables me to get the handle forward. It allows me to swing around my body. So I've got a normal swing direction, like a 0 path, which means very straight shots. It allows me to do everything I need to have really good club face control. Again, very straight shots. And that rotation produces speed, right, and power. So distance. So how about solid shots, straight shots, and more distance, right? We'll all take that. So what I would do in practice is I would do this, test this, grab a club, get that pointed down to the ball, turn your belt buckle towards the target and say, holy cow, I feel way more open than normal and much more bent over. Great. Now create your phone, put your phone behind you, record yourself hitting a few of those shots and see where your body actually looks like. And I bet when you start hitting shots with that, rib cage turn, belt buckle at the target, if you feel like your rib cage is pointed to the ball by impact, and you feel like your belt buckle is pointed at the target at impact, and you're coming from less and less rotation, you're likely going to be nowhere near that in the beginning, which is okay. You need to take those same feels, exaggerate them more. How early can I get that rib cage at the ball? How early can I get the belt buckle pointed towards the target? And exaggerate enough where you see yourself and model against good ball strikers, right? I always think it's interesting. So rib cage at the ball, belt buckle at the target. It's always interesting to me to talk to golfers. And some people are under this notion that we shouldn't use tour pros as models because we can't swing like them. And I think that's the farthest thing from the truth possible. I think it's exactly who you should use as models. Just like anything else, you want to have success in something, you use people who are successful. We can all move to some degree like they do. We can get more turn, more rib cage turn, and better ball striking. So one more time, club in here, club to the ball, belt buckle towards the target. Rib cage rotation. Let's hit one more with that. Rib cage to the ball, belt buckle to the target. And that's going to give me all the rotation in the world that I want. And that's how I would recommend practicing it. Like I kind of mentioned before, would be the impact drills. Do 1 or 2, see what that feels like. Take your club back in your hand and try and repeat that same feeling through the shot. Take your setup and then hit. I would start slow, 20 to 50% speed, half swings. When you prove you can do that, right? Just like when you lift 100 pounds on a bar, then go to 110, 120. When you can do 20 to 50% half swings, gradually raise the swing length up, gradually raise it up. Those are the pieces that I would try if you don't have enough rotation, stand up through impact, and want to improve your ball striking. Hope that helps. If you have any questions, as always, leave a comment down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you did like the video, do us a favor, click that like button down below, click subscribe if you haven't, leave a comment down below. The more action we have here, if you want to support the channel, all that action really helps us, helps YouTube spread our videos around. I would really appreciate if you guys were able to do that. If you guys do like these YouTube style videos, we'll put a card on the screen. You could go ahead and click that, watch a similar video to this one. If you do want to work with me, like I said, we did add some new coaching options. I would go check that out. Click the logo, that'll take you to cogornogolf.com. Would love to see you there.